This week I got to go back to caffeinated coffee. And it's awesome. Oh, God, I've missed caffeine. Oh. Whew. Man, we got stuff to do today. Let's see. I think this lighter. Is this lighter working? No? Is this one working? No. The green ones. It's weird. You wouldn't think color matters. For some reason, the green lighters seem to run out of fuel faster than the other lighters. Weird. Anyway. Whatever. I want to clean my glasses here and wipe down my hands. While we wait for people. Hey, throw this away. Oh. I had a cold front come in last night and my head hurts. Oh. Hey, what's up, Cabia? How you doing? Hope I'm saying that right. We're gonna quarter draft some vampire steaks. Hi. There's a lot of highs. Oh, crap. Hang on one second. I gotta measure these out. Give me a minute. You good? Glad to hear it. Give me 1 second. I gotta get my ruler here. Because I gotta measure out the stabbing tips on these vampire steaks. See, vampire steaks, if you've been on one of my lives before, you know you gotta have at least 6 inches of stabbing tip to reach the heart. So I'm gonna give these 4-inch handles, and that'll give this a 7.5-inch stabbing tip. More than enough to get through the sternum and into the heart. I know it kind of seems like a silly detail, but when you make weird stuff like I do, these are the kind of things you research. I sell vampire steaks for Halloween, and honestly, I sell them year round, but sell most of them at Halloween. And I've been selling out of these particular steaks. So this was supposed to be a Joe staff, but my Joe staff blanks were warped, which I guess turned out to be a good thing because I had to cut them up to make these steaks, which I needed in inventory anyway. Yeah, I'm cord wrapping the handles of vampire steaks. That's what I'm doing right now. Somebody asked what I'm doing. I am putting handles on vampire steaks, and I've got some some Polynesian wood daggers that I'm going to be cording up. I've got some Yawara I'm going to be cording up. And when we get some more people in here, we can talk about some vampire lore. If you guys have any questions about vampire mythology or vampire lore, oddly enough, aside from doing this, I also have a master's degree in English with a focus in world mythology. I write books for Penguin Random House and their various publishing groups mostly on the topic of mythology. Currently under contract with DK Publishing, doing a series of encyclopedias on various stuff like supernatural creatures, legendary heroes, and the unknown, which is what we're working on right now. Legendary heroes and supernatural creatures from DK Publishing are both already out, so if you want to go check those out, you can find those at your local bookstores or on Amazon or online at anywhere that sells books, just about. But the topic this morning that I want to kick things off with is the topic of revenants. And most people with vampires, there's a little weird offshoot of vampire lore and mythology that involves something called a revenant. If you've ever seen the original Blade the Vampire Hunter movie, if you remember that one doctor that got bit, and then when he turned, he didn't quite turn right. Instead of becoming a vampire, he became like a weird zombie. That's basically what a revenant is. That is a part of old Romanian vampire lore. A revenant is similar to a vampire. They consume people, in a sense, but they're not... They don't get most of the benefits of being turned that a vampire gets. What is the use of this item? For the most part, this is used by people who do vampire hunter costumes. They're remaking Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so this year there have been a lot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer costumes going around. And so that's usually, some people just like to have them as like oddities. Some people like put them on display in their homes. But for the most part, these are for people that do vampire hunter costumes. That is the main purpose. And of course, if you actually get attacked by a vampire, they also are functional. You can use them to defend yourself. I hope that never happens. You never know. Medium rare. yeah. Medium rare is the only way to have a steak, right? Are we Christian? That is a complicated question, my man. I am a mythologist. When you have a degree, or when you are someone who studies mythology, it's very hard to have, like, to subscribe to like one religion. It's very difficult for me. Not to say that I don't think there are valid points in religions. There are, and I like a lot of them, and I follow a lot of them. I kind of have my own belief system. But I do not subscribe to any specific religion. I believe all religions have some sort of validity to them. They also all have their problems. And so I find that having my own belief system and my own spiritual beliefs that I have developed over years of experience, I find that's a little easier to deal with. I don't have to try to reconcile contradictions in religions. Far easier that way. Don't forget your mirror and garlic, right? So, actually, we were talking about the garlic thing last time. One thing about garlic that you see in pop culture when it comes to vampires is, you know, vampires tend to react to garlic the same way they react to holy water, where it burns their skin. And actually, garlic in vampire lore is more of like, it's like insect repellent for vampires. Like they don't like the smell of garlic, and so it tends to repel them, but it doesn't actually harm vampires. Hey, what's going on, Aussie? How's it going? Do I think there's a God, Ben? Yes. I'm not an atheist. I just don't have a religion. But the reason garlic, the way that kind of came into vampire lore, so vampire lore a lot of times is related to like plagues and famines. Those things tend to coincide with a lot of the rise and fall of vampire lore. And back in the day, they believed that bad smells caused sickness. There was a long period of human history where they thought that bad smells were where sickness came from. And oh, that wouldn't have been good. And so the idea with like garlic was that, you know, it would overpower like the bad smell. And so since vampirism was seen as kind of like a sickness, there was this belief that garlic would repel them because they were infected with a bad smell illness. And funny kind of addendum to that, plague doctors would wear these masks. They kind of look like crow's beaks. They're these big leather masks, and they would shove like potpourri basically into these masks and wear them because they thought that the good smells from the stuff they put in the mask would like ward off the bad smells that cause sickness. The funny thing about this is that like they came to the right conclusion, but for the wrong reason. So like the masks actually did help them not get sick because it would cover their mouth and they wouldn't breathe in germs, and it did kind of filter things out. So the masks did end up protecting them, but not for the reason that they thought. Because they thought it was protecting them because it was warding off bad smells. Garlic is Christian. I don't know that any plants or botanical organism necessarily has a religion. And the mirror thing comes from, so there was this belief around the time of mirrors and cameras, that the reason you had a reflection in a mirror was because you had a soul, which is where kind of this weird thing came from for a little while, where people were afraid to have their picture taken because they thought the picture was stealing their soul. Like you see that across cultures, where you see times where people were afraid to have their picture taken because they thought that their soul was being stolen. And so the idea of the vampire not having a reflection is because a vampire's soul is gone. It's a soulless undead corpse in a sense. And that's why the vampire did not have a mirror. Do I use mirrors? No, I don't. No, I don't know. So that's the thing. Like a lot of vampire lore, especially the further back you go with stuff like mirrors and garlic, you know, like I'm not sure how valid that is. And so I just feel like keeping my eye on the vampire is probably easier. The lore related to vampires, like the older, like original lore, has a lot of crazy stuff in it. Like, for example, never staking, like, I feel like I go over this every time we talk about vampire stakes in here, but, or vampires in general, is like, you should never stake a vampire with an evergreen wood. That's, like, your stake should never be made out of, like, pine or fir or anything like that. And the reasoning behind that is that in that time of human history, evergreen woods were associated with immortality. The idea being that since vampires are these, like, undead immortal beings, if you stake them with an immortal wood, it won't work. And in a very small subset of the lore, it also says that if you were to stake a vampire with an evergreen wood, not only would you not kill it, but you could make it stronger. So, yeah, old school vampire lore is a little weird with some stuff. The way I'm playing with the stick feels gay. Yeah, sorry about that, man. I can't do anything about the phallic shape of a lot of the stuff I work with. But, you know, I'm pretty secure in my masculinity, so I'm not too concerned about it. Oh, in everyday life, do I use mirrors? Yes, I do. I think most people use mirrors in everyday life. But yes, yeah, I have one in my bathroom, you know. Do you guys know that mirrors, like these days, they're kind of like commonplace. Like mirrors are very commonplace, but around like up until like maybe 100 years ago, mirrors were extremely expensive. They required a process that involved stuff like silver and mercury and lead, and they were very not only difficult to make, but they were dangerous to make. Hey, what's up? How you doing, Eric? But mirrors were extremely expensive for two reasons. One, because the process involved like silver and it was expensive process, but also because people who made mirrors had very short lifespans. Uh, if you made a mirror, you were probably gonna die young because over time you were exposed. They didn't really use PPE very much back then. And so over time you were exposed to stuff like mercury, silver, lead, and these things are toxic. And a lot of times people that made mirrors died young and insane because mercury and lead really F with your brain. So, and then later on down the line, they changed the process to make it far safer and cheaper and easier. And now we have mirrors everywhere. Like no one thinks twice about having a mirror. But like if you were like, let's say in like the 14th century, if you went to someone's home and they had a full length mirror, like a lot of people have at least one full length mirror in their house. If you went to someone's house in the 14th century and they had a full length mirror, that person was probably the richest person you have ever met in your life. Because that would be the only way they could afford a full length mirror. What's my opinion on Russia? I'm not really here to talk about Russia. Good or bad. I don't think countries in and of themselves are good or bad. I think that governments can be good or bad, but I think people in general are not. I find that governments do stuff for the most part independent of what their people actually want them to do. I don't know that any country in and of itself is good or bad. I think that Russia has done great things and they've done horrible things, just like most countries. They basically won World War II. Americans love to believe that we did that, but no, not in Europe. The Russians were really responsible for defeating the Nazis in World War II. But then you had Stalin and you had bad periods in Russia, and you've got Putin now, which he's not exactly the nicest guy in the world, but it's countries change. America's done horrible stuff. Everybody's done horrible stuff. There's not a country on this planet that doesn't have some kind of a dark skeleton in its closet. Do I believe that Israel has the right to defend itself? Yes. Defend itself? Absolutely. I don't know that that's what they're doing most of the time, but I do believe they have the right to defend themselves. But I'm not really here to talk about world politics, guys. I ain't enough of that. You guys want to talk politics? There's plenty of places. There's plenty of people on YouTube who talk politics. I'm not really interested in talking about it. I'm not really interested in talking about world conflicts or any of that crap. Hey, thanks, Greg. I appreciate that. And thanks for the likes, everybody. Yeah, I know. People, they love to troll, which is fine. They want me to say something that they can be like, oh, this guy hates Russians. And I don't hate anybody. I'm just a dude making weird shit in the shop, you guys. Go bother somebody with an actual opinion on this stuff that matters. You're in the wrong live. If you're looking for me to talk about politics, not my bag. I'm a mythologist, not a poli-sci major. Actually, I'm 48 years old. I'm not an anything major anymore. Thank you. Oh, thanks, SM. Appreciate that. All right, before I do this last steak, I need some coffee. I had to drink decaffeinated coffee for like a couple of months, and it was horrible. I recently got the green light from my doctor to go back to caffeine, and it is glorious, you guys. Because I get up early every single freaking day. I was going to sleep in this morning until 6 a.m. 6 a.m. is sleeping in for me. And at 5:30 a.m., my brain decided it was time to wake up. And I hate my brain for that, because I could have slept 30 more minutes. But no. Nope. My brain's like, no, we got to get up and do stuff, dude. Oh. So now I'm up doing stuff. Finishing up these vampire steaks, talking to you guys. Huzzah for caffeine indeed, Jay. Like decaf, it's like, you know, like what good is a cobra with no venom, you know? That's basically decaf. Like you're just getting that placebo effect, and that's about it. It's like you drink it and your body keeps going, oh good, we're gonna get energy soon from this, and then you don't get any energy. You just get the taste. I'm not sure which is worse. I thought about getting like caffeinated protein powder, because I drink protein powder in the mornings. But that stuff has way too much caffeine. Like, I don't want 5 cups of coffee in my protein, worth of caffeine in my protein powder. Once these are done, I got some stuff back here I got to buff out. And we're going to cord up some Yawara. I've got some Polynesian wood daggers I've got to do a few finishing touches to. I've had a couple of customers actually in the last few weeks come to me for custom orders on that they wanted like Polynesian style stuff, and I'm guessing it's because of that I think it's called Chief of War with Jason Momoa on Netflix. I find that when stuff's on TV, when I start getting weird custom orders, I have to research it to figure out what the reason is for people asking for this, and it seems like, yeah, that's been coming out. So a lot of people are interested in like Polynesian weapons, and the cool thing about Polynesian weapons is they were mostly like bone and wood and obsidian. And so like I'm going to be making a huge Polynesian club here pretty soon. I'm going to use tiger shark teeth on that. But Polynesian daggers were for the most part wood. Most people don't realize that wood, you can make like a very useful and sturdy stabbing weapon just using wood. You don't need metal. You just need a very good hard wood and a skilled woodworker and somebody willing to sand the living crap out of it, because that's really the key to putting a good stabbing tip or blade on a piece of wood. And I actually have quite a bit of stuff in my shop that's wood, that's bladed. I don't recommend using that for sparring or anything, because, you know, the blade on the wood, you don't want to be blocking with that or anything. But it will do damage. And you would think like a blade on wood isn't going to cut. No, it will not cut. Decaf isn't bad with dessert, also true. But a bladed wood sword or knife won't cut necessarily like a metal blade. But what it does is, because you have that blade edge, it creates like a focus point for all the force. So if you hit somebody with a bladed wooden sword or weapon, it will split their skin open with the impact. And then of course the stabbing tip, that's not rocket science how stabbing tips work. I don't think you guys need me to explain how stabby works. All right, one more round and we are good. I have to match these up, so I want them to look as uniform as possible. They're handmade, so obviously there are going to be minor differences, but I try I try to be as consistent as I possibly can so that when the person gets it, it looks as close to the picture as possible. These are probably one of the less expensive stakes that I sell. They're made from hard maple. I usually make these from cutoffs when I make Joe stabs, because I do make Joe stabs and practice weapons for like HEMA, Boo Hurt, SCA, Armored Combat. I make bokken for and other practice weapons for Japanese martial arts as well. I do some Filipino stuff as well, like Kali and Silat weapons. Yeah, so I forgot what I was going with that. My brain completely blinked out. But yeah, but you got to make sure they're as consistent in appearance as possible. So there we go. Let me put these up. Give me just a sec. And then I got to buff out some stuff over here. How are these how the stakes looked on Buffy? Not so much. I do have Buffy stakes. I have a few. I can go grab a couple and show you guys if you want me to. Like I've got a chair leg style stake that I use because Buffy, the Vampire Slayer, both the movie and the series, they were big fans of like furniture stakes, the stakes that were made from like pieces of furniture. I also have ruler stakes that are replicas from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie. If you ever watched the original Christy Swanson Buffy the Vampire Slayer film, in the final boss scene, right? She shows up at her prom and like vampires attack, and she opens up this duffel bag and it's just full of wooden stakes. And if you watch that whole sequence closely as she's killing vampires, like you'll notice that like she'll start with like regular like vampire stakes, like ones that were obviously made to be vampire stakes, and then it goes to like furniture. And by the time she gets to Rutger Hauer's like bad guy, and Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman played like the bad guy's like right-hand man. When she goes to stake Paul Rubens, the stake is actually it's just a 12-inch ruler, like a school ruler. Like she just sharpened the tip of a ruler and turned it into a stake. The wood I use, Michael, like what do you mean? Well, like the wood I use here for these is maple, but I use a lot of different woods. I have I use Purple Heart, Padauk. I use zebra wood. I use yellow heart. I use, right now I'm working with Palfaro, which is a very, very strong wood. Big fan of it. I had somebody gift a little bit of it to my shop. And I'm also working with Kumaru right now, which both Kumaru and Palfaro are both stronger than black walnut. If that gives you any idea. Black walnut is like strong as hell. They're right up there with like ironwood. They're very strong stuff. Do I do any wooden blades? I do, Tonto. I do bokken. Most of my bokken are straight edge. I don't do curved. I don't have a steam bender yet in my shop, so I don't do curved bokken. Most people don't realize to make a curved sword, right? You have to first cut the sword out of your blank, and then you have to curve it because the grain of the wood needs to follow the curve of the sword, otherwise it will snap. A lot of the machine cut bokken that you see that are available online, that's one of the reasons they don't last long, is because most of those, they're just straight out cut from a blank by a machine. The machine doesn't bend the bokken, it just cuts the shape out of the wood. So you end up with cross grain, which is a grain of wood that goes from one side of the blade to the other. When you have that, you have a weak point, and that's why they tend to snap. So the reason my bokken, all of my bokken and wasters are guaranteed to not break. If they break within a year of use, in like sparring, I replace them free of charge, because every bokken I sell, the grain of all of my weapons actually, goes completely from the bottom to the top. There is no cross grain in my bokken or wasters. Yeah, it is. It's a huge waste. Like they just basically have like a lot of wood, and that wood gets shoved on a conveyor belt and it goes into a machine. The machine cuts it out of the wood, and then it goes into a pile. Somebody comes by, looks at it. The ones that look good, they go to get their lacquer and they get sold. The ones that look bad get put into another pile. And in that pile, they take the voids and stuff, and they fill any voids or anything that's wrong with the wood with like wood filler. And if there's any cracks or anything, they'll glue it back together with wood glue, and then they'll paint it black, and they'll like carve a dragon or something into the side, and they'll put a handle wrap on it. Then they'll turn around and try to sell it to you for like $20 more, when in fact what you just bought is actually a crappier bouquin with just more bells and whistles on it. Yeah, be very wary of buying any bouquin online or anywhere. If you can't see the grain of a wooden sword, don't buy it, because you have no idea what's under that. All right. I gotta buff out some stuff real quick. How long have I been making these? Well, so as a kid, I made stuff for myself growing up. And then in college, I ran a shop called Rising Dragons in college for extra money. Then like a week before I graduated from college, my shop burned down. My shop caught fire. So I didn't do it for like a long time. For like probably about more than a decade, I didn't do it. And then about 4 years ago, I started Warrior Wood and Props. We were Warrior Wood Weapons back then, but I had to take the weapons out of the name of the shop because weapons apparently causes issues online. So, but yeah, that's my shop's been around for about 4 years. Do I have industry experience? No, I do not. No, everything I've taught myself to do everything that I do in this shop. I do not have industry experience. Most of my props aren't used by most of my props, the ones that end up in anything, like I've had a few independent like rock bands that have had music videos that I've made. Like there's a band called Cursed Bee. I've made some props for them. There've been a few like theater productions I've made props for. Like there's a group in like Connecticut that's doing a Dracula play that I've did a lot of props for them. You know, but no, I don't have industry experience. I just learned to make stuff. But like as far as my wooden swords go, this is an example of my standard bouquin. This is a Shoto bouquin. It's only 32 inches long. But you can see the grain of the wood goes all the way from the handle all the way up the blade. There is no grain lines going across. It gets a double tongue oil finish, and the striking edge of the blade and the tip get a full tongue oil immersion to make sure that the wood is reinforced. And if you buy one of these, I had to make this week. These tend to sell out faster for some reason. I sell a lot of these Shoto ones. But if you buy one of these and you go spar with it and it breaks on you, all you have to do is send me a photo and say, hey, my bouquin broke. Tell me how it broke just so I can, and send me a photo just so I can figure out if it was an issue with the wood or if it was an issue with my design. Because sometimes, you know, I improve my designs over time. So sometimes somebody buys something I've made and I realize there's a flaw in my design. And if there is, then I change it. And then I'm not going to be doing anything with these this morning, but these will also go on sale today. These are limited edition stakes that I've made from Palfero. They have a spiral handle. I've only made 2 of these, and I will not be making more because for 2 reasons. One, I don't have any more Palfero. But I make limited edition stakes every Halloween starting this year. So yeah, these, they have a spiral grip and a faux bladed tip. And Palfero also has the interesting thing about the wood is it's considered to have supernatural properties. It's supposed to neutralize any like illusion magic, which I find interesting. Also it's supposed to uncover deception. So like if a vampire tries to use a glam on you, they can't do it if you have this stick. That's the idea anyway. I have 2 of them. Everything's tongue oiled right now. With tongue oil, after it cures a little bit, you want to buff it out just a little bit, just to make sure there are no bubbles in it. And some of this stuff we're gonna finish up this morning, like this Tenarashi tessen here. This is made of canary wood. It's going to get a wrist loop on the bottom there. Oh, I cannot read with my glasses on. I do my shaping a little with both. Whether he asked if whether I do my shaping with abrasives or a draw knife. I do a large amount of my shaping on like a belt sander and a grinding wheel, but I also use a draw knife. Depends on the size of the, like for the Polynesian club I'm working on, which is from a huge piece of rosewood, I'm using a draw knife to do the initial shaping. You know, I'm cutting it in certain places to make sure that it's shaped down right. And then I'll do the final shaping for certain like detail stuff on my belt sander and grinding wheel. And then I'll go at it with a Dremel tool to do engravings and stuff like that. And this is one of my Polynesian dagger designs. I'm doing proof of concepts this week because I had some people come to me asking me to do Polynesian reproductions, and I always do a proof of concept first to make sure I can do it. This one's made out of orange Osage. This has a bladed edge and a stabbing tip. We're gonna handle wrap that this morning, but that won't be the custom order. That will go up on the shop today. And then I had this kind of thin cut off of Canary wood. So I made a cool little assassin stiletto. This is a stiletto blade. It's a four-sided blade with a pyramidal tapered tip. And it's got a little hole in the handle. It's probably hard to see. And we're going to put a wrist tether in. I don't do this, that Tsukumaki style. I don't. I know a lot of people are fans of it. Here's the reason I don't. Most of my cord wraps, I try to keep them as simple as possible. And the reason for that is that even those Tsukumaki style ones, they have a tendency to eventually come loose. And so I don't do them because when they come loose, the user has to figure out how to put them back on. And I also figure if somebody really wants that, they can do it themselves. I tend to do a very simple cord wrap. I do it in a way that I feel like if it were to come loose, it wouldn't be hard for the user to figure out how to replace it or re-wrap it. So no, I tend to stay away from that style just because it takes too long, and I would have to honestly make my stuff more expensive because the stuff that I would have to buy to do that is more expensive than the stuff I used. I try to always think about price points because I want my stuff to be functional, but I also want it to be affordable. And a lot of that kind of stuff, those little like bells and whistles and adornments, the stuff that makes it pretty, is also the stuff that makes it expensive. This is another Polynesian dagger. This is called a Pajoa. And this is a replica of an actual Pajoa that was a museum piece. This is also Canary wood, but it's got a hole in the handle. As you can see, we're going to put a wrist tether on that as well. Weird. Sorry, hang on. Okay, good. There was a weird like light spot on here. It wasn't there before, but it buffed out. There we go. All right. Oh, I need my glasses back. And I'm sorry, I'm constantly putting my glasses on and off. I have terrible eyesight. All right, just a couple more pieces and then we'll get started on this stuff. Oh. And I've got these white ash Yawara. I will be making a limited number of white ash Yawara over the rest of this year, and then I probably won't be making any more. White ash is very, very rare, especially in North America, because we have an invasive species called the emerald ash borer beetle that has really messed up ash forests. So I do not buy ash unless it's from someone who ethically harvests it. And one of my vendors, they had a guy who had an ash tree that was taken down by a storm. So they went in and with their sawmill equipment and harvested that tree, and I was able to purchase some of it. But you know, I think I bought the last of their pieces from that tree this month. So what I've got's what I've got. And unfortunately, some of the last pieces has a lot of cross grain. So most of that's going to be used to make Yawara, and maybe small stuff, but probably not any more bow cannon wasters. I think I got like 2 more pieces of lumber that are like 48 inches that I can use to make bow cannon wasters. I'll probably make 1 or 2 more, and then I won't. So if you go to my shop, if you want one of the white ash bow cannon wasters that are on my shop, highly recommend getting those soon, because the ones that are up there probably going to be the last of those, at least until the next time I get lucky and someone's ash tree gets destroyed by a storm and I have a chance to buy some more. But I don't buy endangered woods from lumber mills. That's just not something that I do. I don't think it's a good idea, because if we destroy all the trees we need, we will not have trees to work with. So mankind, I don't know what that means. Do I usually sell at booths, or do I prefer selling on social media or Etsy? So I do sell a bit every now and then. I go to like craft fairs and stuff like that. Not very often, maybe like once or twice a year. For the most part, I have my shop on eBay. I used to have an Etsy shop. Etsy kicked me off. Etsy really didn't like me. But if you go to my link tree in my bio, there should be a link to my link tree. There's a link to the eBay shop in there. I have a website, Warrior Wood and Props, through Shopify. Unfortunately, it's having technical issues and Shopify support sucks. You can still use the contact me button at the top for custom orders, but that's about it for the website for right now. But eBay, but I was on Etsy until about a year ago. What happened was Etsy doesn't allow you to sell batons like tonfa or like police batons, right? And so I didn't sell those. I sold eskrima sticks, which a lot of shops on Etsy sold eskrima sticks. It wasn't really an issue. And then one morning I woke up and I had multiple weapons violations on my shop, and they shut me down. And what I found out was they were defining a baton as anything between like 8 and like 36 inches, which is insane. Like, that's not a baton. A baton's usually somewhere between 8 and 24 inches. So for some reason, they suddenly decided eskrima sticks were batons. And so it wasn't just me either. I actually knew of several other sellers on Etsy that had sold similar products to me that got kicked off. So, you know, I think Etsy, they don't really like you if you're not selling candles and jewelry. They're not real thrilled with you. So they did not like, I think they didn't want people selling martial arts stuff on Etsy, and so they found a way to get rid of us. Yeah. I mean, on Instagram, I don't really have problems. I've been on Instagram for quite a while, and I'm NATR Brown 37 on Instagram. NATR BROWN 37 on Instagram, and I share stuff about my shop on Instagram. I don't really have any issues. They mostly seem to have issues with firearms and like actual metal weapons. They seem to have more issues with that. So, and YouTube, I don't really have any issues. eBay, I have no problems at all. eBay has not ever caused me any problems since I've been on it. I mean, I sold on, even when I was on Etsy, I sold on eBay, but I only sold like a limited inventory. So I gotta melt off the ends of this paracord, and we're gonna cord up these Yawara. But yeah, like the whole weapons thing, like I said, originally my shop was called Warrior Wood Weapons, but I kept getting flagged on social media for having the word weapons in posts. And so I stopped and kind of thought it over. So I changed the name of my shop to Warrior Arms and Props. And that worked for a little while. for like maybe like 3 or 4 months. And then it's like the internet suddenly realized that the word arms can be also be used to refer to weaponry. So they started flagging stuff that had the word arms in it. So I just switched to Warrior Wooden Props. And that's what I'm sticking with. I'm not changing the shop name again. We are Warrior Wooden Props moving forward. Yeah, Etsy and eBay. The only thing about eBay is they have a lot of different kind of fees. They don't really seem to tell you about, because they're like, we won't charge you for this until later. But like if you add certain, like if you add a subtitle or you use advertising or any of that kind of stuff, it costs more. But Etsy's about the same, to be honest with you. Etsy had bigger fees, but it was just all one fee for the most part. They had promotional fees and then your selling fees, and that, you know, that it was usually about 15% of whatever you sold the item for is what Etsy would take. eBay's about the same. I lose probably about 15 to 20% of every sale to Etsy or to eBay. But it's cool. It's not, you know, my items are weird as I try to sell them for what I think people can afford and what people are willing to pay for them, not what they're worth every time. So I have some items in my shop that I sell at a loss. There are some items that people buy and I don't make money on those. I lose money on them. But I have other items in my shop that have really big profit margins, and that tends to be smaller stuff. But I have smaller stuff that tends to have bigger profit margins, so it all kind of evens out. Plus, I don't charge shipping if it's domestic, like in the US. I don't charge shipping, so you know that also evens out. I add to my price whatever the average shipping is for an item. So you know, sometimes I'm in Florida. If I'm shipping something to California, I tend to lose money. But I also have people like in New York, you know, all along the Eastern Seaboard who buy from me, and I tend to not spend much to have to ship those. So it all kind of evens out. I used to charge shipping, but I find that people would rather pay more for an item and not worry about shipping than they would to just pay for the shipping. No, like I have a PayPal. I mostly use it for custom orders. Or, you know, when someone does a custom order through me, they have the option of doing it through eBay, or they can do it just with me, and we can use, you know, I have Square, Cash App, you know, Venmo, PayPal. So whatever they have, you know, I let them pay for. My opinion on it is the number one rule of business should be never make it hard for people to pay you. So, you know, whatever the person is comfortable using, that's what we use. But yeah, because my stuff is wood, I don't really use metal very often. I do sometimes do metal, but it's mostly for custom orders. I have never had issues. Most of my stuff qualifies either as for entertainment purposes, or it qualifies as a martial arts practice weapon. And those things don't really have issues, like, you know, wooden swords, stuff like that. The only thing I sell in my shop that could be an issue is my battle bats. I make custom battle bats. I've made axe bats, barbed wire bats, nail bats. Yeah, I made a machete bat last year. You know, I make custom like zombie apocalypse battle bats, baseball bats, and that was one of the other things that Etsy wasn't really a big fan of me doing, even though they didn't really have a policy against it. So, but I haven't had any issues with PayPal. I haven't had any issues with any payment platforms. You know, like Shopify, for example, is one. Like Shopify wants you to use their payment processing, but I can't, because if you're selling any kinds of weapons, Shopify won't allow, even if it's martial arts supplies, Shopify won't allow you to use their payment processing system. So I had to link it to my PayPal instead. So yeah, PayPal haven't really had issues with it. For those of you who haven't seen one of these before, these are called Yawara. Sometimes they're called a Kopo Yawara, or a Kopo stick, or a palm stick. These come from traditional Japanese martial arts. These are used by shurite bodyguards in Okinawa, who were the forefathers of karate. It's basically a stick that you have a cord. The middle two fingers go through the cord, and it creates an extension of your hand that you can use as an augmentation of your fist. The cord keeps it from slipping out of your hand. I have various designs of these on my shop. These are 8-inch. I also have shorter ones of different designs. This is a 6-inch one. This is American hickory. These are white ash. This is a pocket Yawara. It's very short. It's just enough to give you the points coming out of your palm. And it's flat. It's easy. This is the kind of thing that's easy to stick in a purse or a back pocket. But I tend to sell a lot of these to karate practitioners. And oddly enough, bikers. I'm not sure what that's about, but it seems like bikers buy these a lot. Yeah, I know. That was kind of the funny thing to me with Etsy, because the thing they got on to me about, the thing that they really like got rid of everybody for was sticks, right? But you can go on Etsy and buy a murder knife or a sword, right? I can buy a sword or a giant survival knife or a machete on Etsy, no problem at all. I can buy handmade ones from people in Indonesia or Nepal or the Philippines or the US. I can buy all the bladed weapons I want on Etsy, but a stick, especially a palm stick, they didn't like palm sticks either. But I called them massage sticks. That was the loophole on Etsy. You had to call these massage sticks instead of palm sticks or Yawara. Which they are used in massage. Oddly enough, there are some people who do use these for massage. But yeah, they don't they don't want people selling sticks. But I'm like, a sword, it seems to me like a sword or a knife would be way more dangerous than like a palm stick or an eskrima stick. But it seems like Etsy, that's their big issue. They just don't want, like, if you're forging knives in your home forge, they're totally cool with you. But if you're making sticks, that's where they draw the line. Sticks, way too dangerous for Etsy. All right. I think this is enough paracord for this. Let me check. Rib ticklers, right? But yeah, the policies don't make sense. That's why I kind of like eBay. eBay, even back in the day, that's where I sold my stuff back when I was doing it in college. eBay was my main shop back then. And the nice thing about eBay, it's kind of always been this way. eBay's always kind of been the Wild West. You know, as far as like selling items is concerned, as long as you're not selling firearms or something absolutely crazy, you know, what did I do with my lighter? I feel like I'm taking, oh, there it is. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. There it is. But eBay, unless you're selling something that's just inherently illegal or dangerous, eBay's cool with it. They don't really seem to care. I mean, yeah, we've all seen John Wick, right? A pencil, yeah. and the Heath Ledger, you know, with the pencil in the Batman movie with the smacking the guy's head down, you know, yeah. You can kill someone with anything if you're anything's a weapon if you try hard enough. I feel like. I mean, heck, I can take a magazine, roll it up tight, tape it down, and I can do damage with that. Like, you know, it's not hard. This is Canary wood. This is a Tenarashi tessen. I make these out of various woods. This is the first time I've made it out of Canary wood. I'm not sure I love it. It doesn't look bad or anything. It still looks fairly good. And Canary wood's a good hard wood. It's fairly light. Not like super light, but it's lighter than, say, Purple Heart. Now, these are used for the most part by people who study tessen jutsu. I know in traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu, there are some people who use it, use the Tenarashi, and Kobudo, which is the basic weapon style of karate. They also tend to use it. And now we got a nice little, these were styled after the old folding fans, the old iron folding fans, which were called tessen. Daimyo, which were like samurai lords, would use their fans as like a disciplinary tool to smack their subordinates upside the head when they were displeased. Those folding fans were expensive, and if you smack somebody with them, they had a tendency to break over time. So they started using tenarashi, which just means practice stick, or a gunsengata is also what they're called. And because it's shaped the same as a war fan, looks the same as a war fan, but not a war fan. And if you break this, you don't really care because it's just a piece of wood, as opposed to breaking your very expensive handmade iron fan. Oh. Now we're going to do the stuff I'm less sure about. Would it work today? Yeah, you can use this as a fish thumper, absolutely. I actually have made quite a few fish thumpers for custom orders. I don't tend to make them like regularly. I don't keep them in stock, but I have made custom fish thumpers for a few people. But yeah, this would work as a fish thumper. Absolutely it would. Ohio, Chakabe! Ohio gozaimasu! Leon, to be honest, Leon, people have always been able to make people cry with words. It was just a matter of choosing the right ones. You know, I don't think that's new. Making people cry with words, you know, for good or bad, whether that's, you know, making people cry because you've insulted them or making people cry because you've said something so beautiful. But words have always been able to make people cry. That's not a new thing. I think a lot of times people say stuff, you know, I'm not trying to wail on you or anything, mama guy, but I think sometimes people think stuff is new when in fact it's been going on for a while. It's just become a little more prominent lately. All right, I'm gonna have to do this. Don't tell anybody I did that. They gotta get this. It's a tiny hole. This is called a pajoa. This is a Polynesian dagger that they would make out of wood. This particular one is a replica of one from the 1800s that one of my customers saw in a museum and liked it. It wanted a custom one. I'm probably going to make theirs out of some other kind of wood, whatever kind of wood they tell me they want. I made this particular one out of Kamaru, which is very strong. It is stronger than black walnut. It is decay resistant. There we go. And I realize that wrist loop seems long, but I never know what length people want these wrist tethers to be. So I make them long so that when the person gets it, if they want to, they can cut it and re-knot it to their preferred length. I'd rather leave them more than they need than not enough. Well, yeah, and this has a very, very nice stabbing tip. It's rounded all the way around. Yeah, I don't, PL, I don't use linseed oil. I use tongue oil. It tends to work better. Plus, linseed oil can go rancid. Tongue oil does not, so that's why I use tongue oil. I think it would work to dispatch a catfish. I mean, at least to stun it until you cut its gills. But yeah, I mean, a fish bopper doesn't necessarily have to kill the fish. You just have to stun it so that you can dispatch it. I prefer tongue oil over Danish, and to answer your question, the reason I prefer tongue oil over linseed oil and Danish oil is Danish oil doesn't penetrate quite as well, and it doesn't strengthen quite as well as tongue. And linseed oil, I have used it by request before, but the thing with linseed oil is it does turn rancid if you leave it in storage for too long, and I just wouldn't use it often enough. Tongue oil tends to be more stable. It's a good penetrating oil. The other oil that I use in my shop is called mineral oil or lemon oil. I use that as well. But I mostly use that for my HEMA and Boo Hurt and SEA and Armored Combat guys. Yeah, a stick probably wouldn't, just a basic stick probably wouldn't work as a fish bopper very well. But yeah, tongue oil's great stuff. It works really well. You know, your first coat, you put the first coat on, you kind of leave it for 24 hours. And then your second coat, you want to give it a second coat. And then after about 30 minutes, after you've done the second coat, you're going to want to buff it because you can get bubbles between coats, which you don't want. You don't want air between your two coats. You buff that out, and then you're good to go. Oh, my pleasure, J-Bro. But yeah, linseed oil is definitely more of a hassle. I've worked with it. I've worked with linseed oil, walnut oil, you know, lots of different stuff. But like mineral oil, like I said, that's my other oil that I use. The reason my armored combat guys seem to like the mineral oil because there's a couple reasons. One, because it's super easy to maintain. Every time they go to spar, they just soak their waster the night before with mineral oil, which they tend to mix with lemon oil so it smells better. So it makes your wasters smell like lemons, which is usually a big joke with them. But one of the reasons they like it also is that mineral oil isn't, unlike tongue oil. Tongue oil dries hard. Mineral oil doesn't. It just stays kind of wet. And what it does is the outer edge, like the outer section of the wood it's made soft while the inside stays hard. So when you're smacking your boken or your wasters together, it tends to dent instead of crack. It tends to give like an impact absorption effect to the wood, and it makes their wasters last longer. It's less expensive than tongue oil, I think, which is another reason they like it. You can just go get, you can get lemon oil at just about any hardware store, or mineral oil at any hardware store, and you just reapply it when you're ready to use your waster again. And if you get like a serious dent, it's not hard to just sand that out, add a little more mineral oil, and go back to it. But I tend to just use tongue oil by default. I'm familiar with it. It works well. It penetrates the wood, protects it, reinforces it. This is that assassin stiletto, by the way. This is Canary wood. Could also be used as a fancy vampire hunter stake, I guess, if you were so inclined. To be honest, any of my wooden daggers could also double as vampire hunter stakes. Sometimes I'll list my wooden daggers as either a wooden dagger or vampire hunter stake. Some of these I won't be doing that, like the Polynesian dagger. I'm not going to list that as a vampire hunter stake. Or this one. I feel like that's just going to confuse people. They're like, is it a Polynesian dagger or is it a vampire hunter stake? And same thing, like this assassin stiletto, I will probably list as an assassin stiletto or vampire stake, because it could double as both. This isn't made from any specific design. I just kind of looked at the blank and decided I was going to make a stiletto out of it. Yeah, I enjoy this one. This one, I sanded this one up to 1000 grit. So it's got a really pretty finish on it. Got a nice, very smooth surface. Tell you what though, man, it was a pain in the ass to get this blade shape. I do all my stuff by hand, so like I carved out each side and then used the sander to kind of try to even up everything. I got it as close as possible. It's not perfectly symmetrical, but with handmade stuff, if you're looking for perfectly symmetrical, you're in the wrong spot. But it's about as symmetrical as you can get from a handmade dagger. See, technically this is not a dagger, it's a stiletto. Stuff like that bugs me. I don't know why. I'm sure most people don't care. They're like, it's a stabby. Who cares what you call it? But yeah, I enjoy this one. This one will go up on the shop later today. This one, the Pajoa dagger, I believe this one's already spoken for. I have a customer that tends to buy primitive weapons from me. Great guy. He's bought from me for years. And I think he saw that on, I do a works in progress video every Saturday. And I do a finished projects video every like, I shoot it on Sunday, but I tend to post it in the middle of the week. And, but he tends to buy, he's actually one of the people that I'm making one of the Polynesian weapons for. And I think he or someone else has also claimed, I have those Pau Pharaoh vampire stakes. I think he's already claimed one of those. Somebody has, I can't remember who. All right, that's on the side. This is. And I like to give stuff like this a jute cord wrap, just because it looks a little more rough. It gives it more of a, less of a, I don't know how to put it, less of a clean feeling to it. It looks more like it was made with natural materials, which is what you want, which it is technically. Jute is a natural material. There we go. We got our handle on our stiletto. Yeah, more organic. That's a great way to put it. My favorite looking wood, the one I love working with the most, I know some people are going to groan about this, but I love Purple Heart. Purple Heart is awesome. I love that wood. It looks so freaking cool. When it's finished, it sands up so pretty. I make a lot of stuff out of Purple Heart. I just love the way it looks when it's been sanded. Like if you sand Purple Heart up to like 1,000, 2,000 grit, oh, it's like glass, man. And it's got that beautiful purple color. It's insect resistant. It's decay resistant. Most colored woods, especially colored exotic hardwoods, tend to be insect and decay resistant. Not all of them. Now we're going to put a little wrist tether. Because an assassin, you got to make sure, assassin needs to make sure they don't drop their stiletto. So I figured a wrist tether was a good idea, or at least a hole for one. And I'm sure whoever gets this, if they want to replace the tether with something else, they can do that. Same with the handle wrap. And there we go. We got our assassin stiletto. That one is done. We kind of got off the subject of vampire lore, didn't we? Sorry about that, people. If you got any questions, though, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll be glad to answer them. I think this is going to be my last piece today. Oh, I love Padalk as well. Yeah, Padalk. I also make a lot of stuff out of Padalk. I make Yawara out of Padalk. I love Padalk. Padalk is awesome. It is right up there with Purple Heart. Also, I do like, this is Orange Osage. I like Orange Osage because it's easy to work with. It's also very light and very strong. For as light as Orange Osage is, it is extremely strong. Like most woods that are this light are not hardwoods. So that's why I like Orange Osage. It's amazing. This dagger is so freaking light. But this is another Polynesian dagger design. I had another customer who's interested in a Polynesian dagger, and the example they sent me had this kind of profile, so I wanted to just make one out of, I had a piece of Osage that kind of fit the dimensions. So this is not the one I'll be selling that customer, but I will put this on the shop later today. Trying to decide what I want to do for the handle, though. What do you guys think? Just stick with the natural jute? Yeah, it does. Honestly, yeah, it kind of is like the carbon fiber of woods. It's very light, but it's surprisingly strong. And it's mostly because if you look at the end grain, I know it's really hard to see on camera. A lot of times the way to tell if you have a strong wood is if you look at the end grain, you'll see it looks almost like there are little dots in it. Anytime you see that, that's a tightly packed grain. If you see more lines and less dots, that's usually a looser grain. Like you get that with oak, which is fine. Oak's still a good wood, but stuff that's like super, super hard that has really dense grains, if you look at the end grain, you'll see dots instead of lines. You can still see lines, but this has lines and dots. But if you look at like this, it's really hard to see, I think, on camera. But if you look at like the end grain of this Cumru wood, it is all dots, you know. You see very few lines, you see mostly dots. Anytime you see dots at the end grain, that's how you know you've got a strong wood. What do you think, Jay? You think keep it natural? I think you're right, man. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think, do I have enough on this? This was some jute that I had last week. I pulled out way too much. I think I got enough to finish this last one. But yeah, orange osage, it's another one of those woods that I will only get it once in a while. I don't work with it very often. I usually only order it when I have a customer that requests it. It's not endangered necessarily, but it's close. The main thing with orange osage is that it's a very popular wood because of how nice it looks and the fact that it's light and strong. But osage trees take a very long time to grow. You know, so once, you know, we're talking hundreds of years for an Osage tree to mature and grow, to be ready to be harvested. So you don't want to be like harvesting orange Osage lumber. You know, if you find an orange Osage tree and you can cut off a branch or something to make some stuff out of, I'll absolutely go for it. But I try not to use orange Osage unless I have a specific request for it, because those trees take so long to grow. And like I said, with a lot of my stuff, I try to make sure that I use naturally harvested wood whenever possible. If I'm buying lumber, I try not to buy endangered woods. If I do have to buy an endangered wood, I will make sure that I buy it from a vendor who ethically harvests that wood. It's also why when my vendors get like a piece of wood that's rare, a lot of times they'll contact me and let me know, like, hey, you know, we had a person contact us, we went and harvested this tree, you know, so we've got this wood in stock, and I'll go ahead and buy it and just keep it to have it on my inventory just in case. Like that's kind of like what I do with the white ash. But don't buy white ash from lumber mills. Yeah, Osage, yeah, reclaimed wood's also great. Yeah, orange Osage was used in a lot of old fences. Yeah, you can, especially like in the Midwest and up in the like Northeast, you see that a lot. You have fences that were made with orange Osage. Again, light, strong wood. It's decay resistant, insect resistant, so you know it worked really well for fences. But I love using reclaimed wood too. I work 3 jobs. I'm an author, I work at this shop, and I also, during the day, I work for a home renovations company now. I used to be a marketing copywriter, but AI took my job, so I decided I'm done with it. And I work in home renovations, stripping and sanding and repairing like furniture and doors and walls and that kind of stuff. But on those jobs, a lot of times there'll be other contractors doing stuff, and they'll go to toss cutoffs and things into the trash, and I'll ask them, you know, is it cool if I raid your garbage? A lot of times they're fine with it, so I'll go into their trash and I'll find some nice cutoffs. I actually found some white ash cutoffs of some old white ash molding that they had removed, that they threw in the trash, and I was like, can I have this? They're like, sure. And I made stakes out of it. Oh, I get great scraps, man. That's how I got this. That's how I got this Cumru wood. This was from, they were doing, these people, some of these people, by the way, Cumru not endangered, just exotic, and hardwood. But there are people out there, I'll give you an example. I worked on a job just a few weeks ago where they had a generator that was like outside the house, like an integral generator. And they put it in an enclosure. The entire enclosure, you guys, it was like a fence that goes all the way around. This huge generator was made out of ipe wood. You can look ipe up. Shit's expensive, man. It is hard and strong. I make stuff out of ipe too. But also a lot of them use Cumru wood. similar to Ipe, has similar properties. But yeah, they'll make like fences and like molding and stuff out of it. And so a lot of times in the area I work, it's kind of the area that the company I work for is in is a more of an upscale area. It's called Boca Grande. It's here in Florida. Mostly very wealthy people live there. It's kind of it's a key, it's like a little island. So yeah, I get a lot of really good cutoffs and really good wood scraps from working there, because usually like they're replacing old stuff, especially right now because snowbird season starts soon. That's when all the rich people from the colder states, they come down to Florida during the winter and stay here because it's warmer. And so right now a lot of us are working on houses and repairing stuff for when those people come. Usually they come in like from like December to April. But there we go, orange Osage dagger. This is from another Polynesian design. And that will also go on the shop today. But yeah, matter of fact, one of the jobs I'm working on right now, I kid you not, dude, these people have 8-foot high doors made out of mahogany. Like a pair of doors. These doors are huge. They're probably 6 feet wide total and about 8 feet high. The doors are mahogany, the molding's mahogany, and all around the house, like the brace molding and all that stuff, like they have like faux brace molding, all of that's mahogany. It's insane what some of these people spend on the woods for their homes. But yeah, I love using reclaimed materials just because, you know, I hate seeing wood go to waste, number one. And number two, it makes me feel better. I feel like with wood is a renewable resource, but not a finite, not an infinite one. It's finite. So you gotta, you know, it's gotta be treated properly. So I think using reclaimed wood is a way for me to make the stuff that I like and not feel like I am contributing to a problem. I'm not necessarily a tree hugger, but I definitely want trees to be around for a while. Holy shit. Hey, thanks for all the likes, you guys. I really appreciate that. And thank you for all the chats this morning. There you go. Put some of this stuff away. You guys want to do a little show and tell? What was I going to show you guys earlier? Somebody asked me about something, and I was thinking I would show you, and I can't remember what it was. Anybody remember what I was talking about? I was going to show you guys something. I can't remember what I was going to show you. If anybody can remember, stick that in the chat for me, will you? My old brain can't remember crap. If somebody had asked about something that I make and I can't remember what it was. I gotta put this stuff over here so I can do my finished projects video later. Oh, I'm sorry if I'm flashing you guys with plumber's crack. I hope I'm not. Yeah, I know, I'm drawing a blank too. But you know what? I'm going to go grab some stuff from the inventory to show off. I'll be right back. I've got quite a few Halloween things probably that I need to show you guys. I don't know. Maybe when I look at my inventory, I'll remember. But you guys smash your faces against the wall or something until the memory falls out. I'll be right back. I actually remembered. All right, I got a few things I'll show off here. So I was talking about my Buffy the Vampire Slayer stakes. This is my chair leg stake. That's inspired by Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Also the movie Sinners, because in Sinners they used a lot of furniture to make their steak. By the way, if you haven't seen the movie Sinners, highly recommend it. God, it's so good. This is about this one could be Sinners or Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yeah, I know, right? It's a beast. It's beefy. I love that one. I got a few of those in stock. I have 2 different styles of the Buffy replicas. These are the super cheap ones. Like these are very cheap. These are like less than $10, I think, on my shop. These are just straight up wooden rulers that I sharpened and put athletic tape on. Which, by the way, if you don't want to buy these, just go buy a ruler and sharpen it and put some athletic tape on it, and you've got your prop for your Buffy the Vampire Slayer outfit. These are slightly nicer. They are thicker. They're also 12-inch. I put a cotton cord wrap on them, so they still have that kind of ruler look, but they are a little beefier. They show up on camera better. Oh no, I use these from reclaimed chair legs most of the time. The 2 that I have here came from a chair that somebody threw out, and so I popped the chair legs off, just screwed them off. Actually, I think these came from a coffee table, to be honest with you. These came from a coffee table that I grabbed. The table part was pretty much destroyed, but the legs were good, so I unscrewed the legs, sanded them down, gave them a stain, sharpened up the tip, gave them a stain, gave them a wrap. Yeah, work smarter, not harder. Oh yeah, you can absolutely kill vampires with these. That's the whole point. I wouldn't kill a vampire with this one. I mean, because it's pine. But I use pine because pine looks like a ruler. That's the main reason I use it, because it's got that really prominent grain on it, that wide grain. But yeah, those are my 2 ruler ones. I also do natural wood stakes on the shop. We have hurricanes here in Florida. When a hurricane comes around, all my neighbors know me, because the morning after the hurricane, I get up, I grab my chainsaw, I grab an axe, I grab my gloves, and I go from one side of the neighborhood to the other, clearing the roads, helping my neighbors get trees out of their yard, helping people if they've got stuff blocking doors. And as I'm doing that, I also harvest some natural wood. And some of the natural wood I use for like walking sticks, but some of it I use to make vampire stakes. This particular one's Southern Live Oak. This is one of my nicer ones. I sanded this up to 1,000 grit. It's got a cool little crook at the back and a little cotton cord handle. Looks good. And then we were talking about Purple Heart earlier. This is one of my favorite vampire hunter weapons that I've made. This is Purple Heart. You can see the finish on that. This has been sanded to 3,000 grit. It has a leather handle in the center. This is pig leather handle in the center. It's double-ended. I've only ever made a couple of these. This is, I think, the 3rd one I've ever made. Yeah, I know the crook on this one, PL. I love that one. It gives it. I love the natural wood ones. I've got one I did recently that I stained that actually looked really good. I might go grab that one too. But yeah, this one is one of my more expensive pieces because it's, a 2-foot long piece of Purple Heart wood. But it is sanded to 3,000 grit. You can see from the light, you can see the finish on this is about as perfect as you can ask for. But yeah, I really dig that. I also make gladius swords out of that. Let me go see if I can find that newer one, that newer stake. It's really cool. I love this stake. You know what screws you guys? We're going all in on the stakes for show and tell today. So this is one that I made recently from natural wood, and I really love like the kind of crooked design to it. I stained this one because I thought it would look better to give some contrast with the jute. But even though, because what I think is cool about it is even though it has like a wiggle, like it's still like the tip is still lined up with your hand when you go to stake. So it's not like, he doesn't have such a curve that like the tip goes off to the side or something. So it's still a viable staking tip. And these are my cross stakes. I used to make a thinner version of these. I think I still have one of those in stock. I don't make those anymore because they just don't seem to be very sturdy. This is a replica, though, of a cross stake from a 19th century vampire hunter kit. I had a client probably about 3 years ago come to me. They had gone to an auction, like at a goth club, where they had all this like vampire hunter memorabilia stuff they were auctioning off. And she saw this vampire hunter kit that she really liked, but it was like $5,000. So she just took pictures with it with her phone, sent me the pictures, and asked me to make the replicas of them. So this is one of the replicas that I made for her, and so I kept making them because I thought they looked cool. Because you got your cross and your stake, and then this is another reclaimed wood piece. This is I call this the fence post or the fencer. Yeah, I know. You see them every now and then, those old vampire kits. One thing I would warn you guys about, if you go on eBay, you'll notice there are a lot of people out there selling antique vampire hunter kits. Probably about 90% of those antique vampire hunter kits are not antique vampire hunter kits. What they've done, and you probably wonder how I know this. I know this because probably a handful at least of those kits have stuff in them that I made. There are people who in the past who have bought stuff from me. They'll buy it from me, they'll distress it, make it look ugly, and then they'll assemble a vampire hunter kit and they try to turn around and sell my stuff as antique. It's not antique. My shop's only been in business for like 4 years, so not an antique. It's been made in the last 4 years. I sell my stuff as replicas. I don't claim it's antique. But a lot of those vampire hunter kits you see on eBay, not antiques, you guys. And just because they say it comes with a certificate of authenticity, it doesn't make it an antique. Unless that certificate of authenticity comes from like a legit auction house or something, or a legit like appraisal company. I can print a certificate of authenticity for you if you want me to. We're like 99. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that's true. Probably 99% of those kits they're not antique vampire hunter kits. So what they'll do is they'll go out and buy stuff. They'll find like a chest or something that looks old. Like that's probably the thing that is antique, is the chest itself. The thing it comes in, they'll go buy like an antique chest at a secondhand store or Goodwill. They'll weather it and distress it. They'll assemble a bunch of stuff they'll buy online. They'll put it all in the kit. Then they turn around. They probably spend a couple $100 tops, probably less than that, to assemble the kit. Then they'll turn around and sell it to you for $5,000 and say that it's an antique vampire hunter kit. It is not. Let me put this down here so it doesn't get messed up. And then last week I showed one of my big vampire hunter pieces called the Scythe, which has kind of a hammer. This is a similar piece. I call this one the Sagging Cross. It's got a southern live oak head that I've left rough. It's got 2 stake tips, and that way you can swing it into the chest of the vampire or down on the chest of the vampire. It also has a vampire stake stabbing tip. This one is also up on the shop right now. Those were fun to make. It's got a natural cotton cord wrap that I spiraled a little bit. Oh, and a piece of bark fell off. Oh no. Oh, it was just a tiny piece. We're fine. It's bark. It doesn't stay on forever. But yeah, it's a fun piece. It is a big boy. Oh. But yeah, be very careful buying anything, especially vampire hunter stuff on eBay if they claim it's an antique. You know, because you got a lot of people on eBay, they're selling stuff at antique prices. And it's just not. They're, you know, they can, if they think if they can make it look antique, they put the word antique on it, then they can charge you more for it. All they've really done is take some items and make them look ugly and turn around and try to sell them to you as antiques. None of my stuff are antiques. All of my stuff, if I have the word antique on mine, it's an antique replica, which I do make antique replicas. But I do not sell antiques. I'm not an antique dealer. But yeah, one of the big ones is I make these hickory daggers, and those turn up a lot. Hickory and oak daggers, those turn up in those antique vampire hunter kits a lot. Matter of fact, I'll go grab one of those. That'll be our last show and tell for today. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So these are my fancy schmancy vampire hunter daggers. But I used to sell just this kind, which is I would just sand them and tongue oil them. However, I went online and found that people had taken these daggers or different types of these daggers, and what they'd done is stain them and distressed them, puts a few cuts on them, and sold them as antiques. I now sell these on my shop, not as antiques. They look exactly the same as the ones that the people who are selling them as antiques, and I sell them for about a quarter of what those people are selling theirs for. So if you want a cool, this is hickory. If you want a cool hickory dagger that is stained and it looks distressed and all that stuff, you can buy this at my shop for I think like 30 or 40 bucks, or you can buy them at their shop for like 300. And I would highly recommend. They sell them for anywhere from like $120 to $300 these. So don't do that. Just go to my shop and buy these. They're way cheaper. And but I have different links and wood types. This one's oak. That one's hickory. Well, I don't mind. They bought the work from me. I don't, you know, they didn't like get a discount or anything. They bought it from me for what I sell the work for. My issue isn't that they took it from me and reused it. I have a lot of people that are resellers who buy my stuff and resell it, especially like I have customers who run like curio shops where they just sell weird shit. I have a lot of people who are resellers that buy stuff from me, especially in New York. I have a couple people that buy stuff from me and they resell them in their shops, which is fine. My issue with it is when you take my stuff and alter it and then turn around and lie about what it is. That's the issue I have, you know. A bit flattering. It is flattering, you know. Yeah, I do good work and they buy my stuff, but I have no issues with people buying my stuff and reselling it. I have no issue with that at all. My issue is when people buy my stuff and then turn around and lie and say and use it to commit fraud, basically, and say that it's an antique when in fact it was made in the last 3 or 4 years. No, it's not an antique, my guy. Now, these, it used to take me forever to make these. It took me about, I'd say probably about 6 months of making these before I got like my process down. I can make these a lot faster now, which is why I can sell them for cheaper. They used to be a lot more expensive just because it took me a very long time to make one. Now it doesn't take me nearly as long. That's usually the way with a lot of stuff I make. When I first start making it, it takes me a little while until I kind of figure out what the process is going to be. But now I've got a process down for these and these bigger ones. The bigger ones, I have them in stock. I'm probably, once the bigger ones sell out, I'm probably not going to I'm not going to keep making these and having them regularly in stock. I'll probably stick with these smaller ones to have in stock on my shop. And I will still make these by request, you know, for custom orders. these bigger ones take a much longer time to make. Getting that taper, that really long taper with a blade that long is very difficult. It takes a very long time to sand, and I just don't sell them often enough. So, you know, if once the ones that I have in stock like this are sold out, I probably won't be keeping those in stock anymore. I'll just have them on for custom. Okay, so yeah, so fire hardening is what PL is talking about. He asked if I ever flame the tip. So I do that, but here's the thing. The reason I do it is because I often find that people ask if I do it. But here's the thing about fire hardening. Fire hardening only works if the wood that you're using is green. This wood is already as hard as it's going to get. It's been kiln dried. Like, when wood's been kiln dried, like this, I can put a flame to it, and I do, just because I find that people ask if I've done that, and if I have, they buy it. So I do it, but does it do anything? No, it doesn't. It does not. It does absolutely nothing. All it does is I do it at about 800 grit, because I sand these to 1,000. So at about 600 or 800 grit, I flame harden everything, and then I sand off, you know, the black from the flame off of it. Now, something like this, for example, this was a greener wood when I got it. So after I shaped this, yes, I did. I flamed the tip slightly so that it doesn't crack, and I flamed the back so that it doesn't get any cracks. So make sure that these two ends are dry before I sealed it. It makes sense if you're working with green wood. If you work with green wood, fire hardening works. But if you're working with wood that's already kiln dried, it's already as hard as it's going to be. Matter of fact, if you've ever watched like Forged in Fire, for example, it's one of the things that drives me nuts on that show. Anytime they're using shafted weapons like spears or halberds or anything like that, these guys will go and make their weapon, and then they'll take a blowtorch to like put like a fire, like a burn pattern on their shaft. Okay, well, what they've done for a shaft, you want to have maybe just a little bit of moisture in a shaft for a shafted weapon. Okay, because you need it. It's going to absorb impacts. When you run a blowtorch over a shaft for like a halberd or a spear, what you've essentially done is you've pulled all the moisture out of that wood, and you've made it dry, and you've made it brittle. And if you go watch Forged in Fire, a lot of times those guys who do like burn patterns on their shafts, the shafts end up breaking. And that's why, because they've basically made their shaft very, very brittle. And the other thing that a lot of people don't look for is on shafts, you have to look at wood grain. If you have a grain that's traveling from this side to this side, that is a break point. This, I can see the grain, and I know that the grain of this goes all the way from the top all the way to the bottom, which means I know the grain is straight, and there's no cross grain. So if there's cross grain, that is a break point, and you will get it. And a lot of times those Forged in Fire guys, and it's not their fault, you know, they're metal workers. They don't work with wood, so they don't think about this stuff. But that's always something I see people do, and it drives me nuts. Right, yeah, like that's what they're doing. They, you know, the burn pattern they're putting on their shafts is just for aesthetics. It's just for appearance. But at the same time, they're creating a weaker shaft because they're creating dry, brittle wood, which you don't want dry, brittle wood. Matter of fact, my favorite for shafted weapons, my favorite wood of all woods in the world for shafted weapons is waxwood. If you ever watch Kung Fu movies, if you ever notice like their stabs seem to be kind of bendy, that's waxwood. Like if you see them where they're like, you know, like smacking it on the ground and stuff, like, and it seems like it almost looks like they're using PVC pipe because it's so bendy. That's waxwood. I absolutely adore waxwood. It is expensive. It's even more expensive right now because of tariffs and all that stuff. I wish I had bought some before the tariffs because I would love to make some waxwood stuff for the Christmas season. But right now, waxwood is about 3 times as expensive as it was. Exactly. For shafts, yes, you want wood that has been cut with the grain, not against the grain. I'll give you an example. This was an issue that I had with some of the ash wood that I had sent recently, that was sent to me recently, that I can't use. So like here's a great example of that. Like I'll be using this piece of ash probably to make Yawara and smaller stuff. But if you notice, see how the grain cuts across. You see how it cuts across the board? So all of that, these are all potential break points. If I were to make a sword out of this, at one of these points, if you smack it hard enough, it is eventually going to break. All right. Now with a shorter thing like a Yawara, not as big of an issue. I could probably like make a tanto out of this part because I do have straight grain here. And I have straight grain at this end. But all that area where that grain goes across, once I shape this down into a waster or a boken, all of this stuff in this main center portion here, these are all potential break points. Oh, I'm sure Oregon ash is cooler. You guys, I think, hey, see, if you guys got that emerald ash borer up there in Oregon, if you guys managed to keep that out, because I know that's the issue that we're having in a lot of the U.S. Like this is that white ash, the eastern white ash, and I get this every now and then, but it's difficult to get these days because you know that the ash trees have just been so screwed up by that emerald ash borer beetle. If you guys don't have it up there in Oregon, I hope you never get it because it's a great wood. But yeah, so that's a good example of what I'm talking about. A lot of times when you buy a boken, if you're buying a machine cut boken, they don't look at this kind of stuff. So if they have a piece of wood like this, this is going to get shoved into their machine. They're going to cut a boken out of it. You're going to have no idea until you go to use it and it snaps on you. Like this is a great example of what I'm talking about. This is a machine cut boken that I have in my shop because I'm going to make a video with it in the future on how to upgrade these. But you notice the lacquer is not clear. Most likely there's probably wood filler in some of this, which is why it has a dark lacquer to cover it up. And they put that, you know, that Tsukamaki grip on it, you know, it's definitely glued on. It's not done, probably not done properly. But at some point, I'm going to do a video on how to take a machine cut boken and strip it and upgrade it so that it will last a little bit longer than normal. I just haven't had time to make that video yet. But yeah, if you see a boken online that looks like this, unless you're planning to sand it and upgrade it, I would not recommend buying it. The first time you go to use something like this, it is going to break if you use any force whatsoever. Oh, that's awesome. See, I'm glad to know that. Yeah, tiger wood is great. Expensive, but good. Yeah, tiger wood's good stuff. I was actually looking at it earlier this week because I was working with Palfaro wood, which looks kind of similar to tiger wood. And at first I wasn't sure what kind of wood it was. And the first guy I showed it to, he was like, I think that's tiger wood. But I'm like, no, it's not. It's too dark for tiger wood. But yeah, tiger wood's a good wood. I like those woods that have kind of contrasting grains, like zebra wood. Tiger wood's awesome. Palfaro looks cool. Oh, I need to take my glasses off so I can read. All right, PL, get some sleep, man. Thanks for chatting with me. I appreciate it. Take care. Snakewood. See, I've never heard of snakewood. What's that like? Tell you what, you tell me what snakewood is like. I'll be right back. I gotta put some of this stuff up real quick. I'll be right back. Hey, what's up, Mike? Woot woot. Yeah, I take off my glasses to read. I'm old, so I have a focus issue. I have bifocals, but they don't really work great. So when I have to focus on small stuff, I have to take my glasses off. Sorry. I know it's weird. I constantly take them on and off. It's a pain in the ass. I need to probably get new glasses, to be honest with you. But yeah, because otherwise I'm doing this all the time trying to read. And it's two things. One, it looks ridiculous. And two, I don't want you guys looking at my nose. And three, it makes me look like an old man. So, wow, 3,800 pound Jenka hardness. Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah, guitar boards. You know that's the Palfaro wood that I worked with. I made a couple of limited edition stakes for Halloween this year out of the Palfaro, and I saw that that's one of the common uses for that is the guitar necks, which I get. It looks cool. It's a pretty wood, and it's strong as hell. Oh, you sell exotic wood for a living? Awesome. Well, maybe shoot me a message or something at some point, because I definitely buy exotic wood. So as long as you got stuff I need, I'll definitely buy from you. Hey, what's up, Osage? All right, folks. This is actually, speaking of exotic woods, you might like this. There, see, this is Purple Heart. This is a double-ended vampire hunter sword that I made for Halloween. I make one of these a year, just about. They usually sell around the Halloween season. It's got a pig leather handle in the center. I sand this up to about 3,000 grit. Oh, I love Purple Heart, man. It's awesome. Yeah, it is. It is like one of my favorite woods to work with because when it's treated properly, dude, it looks so sweet. Like and this is in because of I did 3,000 grit and I wet sanded up to like 800 grit. I wet sanded and then did 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 after that. So it's just like mirror. It's like a glass finish on this, which I love. But yeah, I don't make these super often just because that takes a really long time to shape and sand because I do this all by hand. But it is awesome. I really love that piece. I also make Gladius Rudis swords, which are like trophy swords. A lot of times I sell them to people in SCA and in armored combat stuff. A lot of times they'll use them as trophies at tournaments because it looks like a Roman gladius, but it's wood, it's a Rudis sword. I used to give them to gladiators who won their freedom, and so a lot of times SCA people and armored combat people like to use them as trophies for their tournaments. Yeah, Purple Heart, it's getting rarer and rarer. The guy I buy it from, they have a tree farm, I guess is what from what I understand that they work with to get it. That's why I work with them because I don't want them. I don't want them. It's like ebony, man. Like I won't buy ebony anymore. I won't buy ebony wood because there's really no one who's selling ebony lumber that's legal, and it's usually 9 times out of 10 you go to buy the ebony and it's not even ebony. It's something it's some hardwood they've dyed black. But yeah, ebony is beautiful, but I haven't touched ebony probably since 2005. It's a great wood, but unfortunately it was just over harvested way too much. So yeah, but if you go online and see people selling ebony wood, highly recommend don't buy it because it's either been illegally harvested or it's not ebony. What they've done is they've taken some sort of hardwood and they've saturated it with some kind of a black pigment. Yeah, I figure, yeah. There's like same issue with me. Like the stuff I get's not always figured properly. It's kind of like with that ash board. It's just I try to find the pieces that are to make big stuff out of. But I don't make sparring weapons with Purple Heart. I mostly make make more ornamental pieces with it, like this. You know, this is not a sparring piece, obviously. Yeah, I don't, unless I were to get like a custom order where somebody just wanted a Purple Heart bowken. I don't really make that stuff out of exotic woods. Yeah, exactly. That's great. Like if you have, you know, that's the thing. I try to go with people who they buy through a tree farm. Tree farms, awesome. Like, because the thing, for those of you who don't know, like a tree farm, it's way more sustainable because what they do is they have their own private area where they're growing trees. And the owner of that tree farm, it behooves them not to destroy all of their trees because those trees are going to make more trees. So they tend to only, they'll cut a certain percentage of their trees each year or every decade sometimes, depending on the tree farm and how big it is and what they're doing. But you know that you're buying wood that's being sustainably harvested and it's being sustainably grown. So that way you know that you're not buying wood and contributing to the extinction of the wood that you're buying. Again, it's not a hippie thing. I'm not a tree hugger, but I'm not an idiot either. I know that if we harvest all these freaking trees, we're not going to have any wood left. You know, and there's a lot of wood that I want to keep working with. Oh, good gracious. Yeah, the Gavin ebony. Yeah, Gavin ebony is very hard, and that's the thing. Every now and then I'll see like someone selling like a piece of Gavin ebony on eBay, and they'll have that same story in their description. You know that they did a carry out, and but then you look at it, and sometimes the grains aren't right. You know, they didn't, you know, obviously the person wasn't cutting it properly, something like that. You know, it's, and also a lot of times I look at it and I'm like, that's not ebony. It's not. You can tell. You can see the grain in it. You can tell that they've taken some wood and they've dyed it black. You know, you could take, you know, some other super hard wood and dye it black and claim that it's ebony, which I think a lot of them do. Whole forest out of Ecuador. Oh, awesome. I'll have to check them out. See, thanks for that info. Whole forest. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I know I buy, like, some of my exotic woods, like the stuff that's not endangered, I buy from Barrington Hardwoods. I have some independent sawmills, like people that like that they use trees that are on their own property. And all my other vendors, for the most part, are people that buy through independent tree farms. Well, and now that what company do you work for? Because, like, is that Whole Forest, or you have to coat the whole piece of ebony? Oh, God, yeah, I know. It has to be waxed, yeah. It's funny, the first time I worked with ebony, I didn't know that. And I couldn't figure out why my sandpaper kept gumming up. And I didn't realize I did it. I was much younger. I was like in my early 20s when that happened, or my mid 20s. Giant butcher blocks, backsplashes. Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna check out Whole Forest. I'm always looking for good vendors. I know another issue that I'm having, especially with like bigger vendors, it's not with exotic woods. It's usually with stuff like oak, maple, like the stuff that I use more regularly, the less exotic stuff. They keep like I don't know why measurements are so hard for them to get correct. But like a lot of times I'll get stuff and it's like a 1/4 inch short, you know, which is not a big deal. It doesn't seem like, but I need it to be the length that I asked for. And a lot of times I've noticed, I don't know what's going on with that, but a lot of it seems to be getting cut short for some reason. The Hardwood Center, I'll have to check them out too. The Hardwood Center. Oh, cool. I like it. Well, see, thanks for the chat, my guy. I got to wrap it up, folks. I'm running out of time for today. I've got to go home and I've got to do groceries and laundry and all that stuff. I got to be back here at like at like 5:45 tomorrow morning to go back to work. My other shop that I work in during the week is next door. So I got to be back here super early. Yeah, go grab some breakfast and coffee, my man. Thanks again. Please stop by again. I'd love to hear from you. PL, also, thank you so much for chatting with me while you were here. Everybody else, thanks for the likes. And if you like what you've seen, go check out Warrior Wooden Props on eBay. You can find the link in my link tree in my bio. Please like and subscribe. I do my Saturday staining live is every Saturday around 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. And I go live here on YouTube every Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. for my finishing work. So feel free to join me. I also do a works in progress and a finished projects video every week. Flame elm. That sounds freaking awesome. I've worked with gray elm recently. They look pretty sweet. Flame elm. I have to check that out. It's hard to find. It probably has a freaking sweet looking like wood grade or something like that. I'll have to check it out. See if I can find some that's like already like reclaimed or something. Flame elm. It's good to know. All right, you guys, I'm out. Everybody have a great Sunday. Thank you again for hanging out with me for Sunday finishing work. If you need to buy something for Halloween, please know that in my shop, basically Friday, I think it's Friday, October 24th is basically the cutoff. Like, you can buy stuff after the 24th, but I can't guarantee it's going to reach you in time for Halloween. So, yeah, if you need stuff for Halloween, highly recommend. You got about 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks, you got about 12 days to get your orders in time for Halloween. So please make sure you go to the shop, get your orders in now, so you make sure it gets to you in time for Halloween. Everything in the shop's 13% off until November 1st, all through the rest of spooky season. I'm going to go home, do all my stuff, watch a bad movie. I'm going to watch The Burbs, which to me is not a bad movie. I freaking love it. But apparently the rest of the internet thinks it's a bad movie. Don't really understand how that works. But if you haven't seen The Burbs with Tom Hanks, highly recommend it. It's got Tom Hanks, Corey Feldman, Carrie Fisher's in it, Princess Leia. Come on. It's awesome. Highly recommend it. But yeah. And then after October 31st, I'll be right back here getting beefing up my inventory for the holiday season. I'm out of here, everybody. Thanks again for hanging out with me. I'll see you next week.